best sports clips from around the country. Now you're probably wondering, why should I watch over here instead of over there? Because over there, they don't care about what you have to say. They say this all the time. They talk down to us. They think we're just a bunch of clowns on YouTube, Twitter. But I think it's the opposite. I think we know exactly what we're talking about. So I read every single comment. So if you think what I'm saying is the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, let me know in the comments below. If you think what I'm saying is the most amazing thing, then definitely please let me know. Either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and it's turning into something truly special. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing that. So without further ado, let's get to it. We're watching a clip of First Things First, talking about Mahomes and the styles of, comparing to Brady, and Purdy matches up with the 49ers. Legend, Joe Montana. Those have been kind of hot topic debates. Obviously, Mahomes has been compared to Brady for a while now, and now Purdy to Montana as of more recently within probably the second half of this season, probably more than anything. I'm curious to see where they take this because I know people are having more and more conversations also as well as Mahomes versus Brady. I think for a long time, or as of really recently, it was seen as that Brady is definitely the GOAT, yada, 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 that Mahomes still needs to win more. But it seems like now people are saying Patrick Mahomes is better now, even just now, right now. So whether or not he wins the same amount of Super Bowls as Tom Brady, which in a way is kind of similar to LeBron James and the Michael Jordan debate. There's always that back and forth, but a lot of people have made up their mind even before LeBron won another championship with the Lakers. So I guess when he just only had 3 NBA finals, I guess, right? Because he won 3, they were already saying he's better than Michael Jordan, right? He doesn't need to win another 3 or 4 rings, right? His greatness isn't judged based on whether or not he wins more rings than who he's trying to chase. And so I think maybe that's what the argument is against Mahomes versus Brady. And I have some thoughts with regards to that. I want to see what they have to say first before I share them, and then we'll get into it. But I definitely, I have some very specific thoughts that I think we have to take into consideration before we say who is the GOAT, because I don't ever think it's really that cut and dry. I think it's situational and what we're talking about specifically.
New York, it's a show that is celebrating National Croissant Day. It's First Things First. Today, the Chiefs.
It sounds like.
Oh, don't you dare. Don't you dare.
Say it.
I mean, it's not about stats, right?
No, but
it's about the
whole
win.
Thing was about
I didn't say.
Oh. Because I saw what you wrote down.
What is it?
You wrote
what
down. That's what he was going to say.
Get the ball to the playmakers.
Purdy
actually puts up big numbers.
See, exactly. Thank you. He's just trying to be a clown. Don't listen, Wilds. You're less than 24 hours back in the kingdom. Don't squander it here.
It sounded.
Let's get to the
game managery,
right? Which it has been. Let's get to the show.
Yes. Reaction. We're in the show. Reaction to Mahomes changing his style of play to be more Purdy-esque.
So to answer the question that's on the screen rather than the dumb one you asked, I love it. Even if it's less exciting. And I'm going to, listen, Brew grinds the All-22 after the Odd Couple. Wilds grinds the All-22 before the show into the office with Josh.
Yeah.
I am more of an ideas man.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I am. I'm an ideas man. But I'm going to do something I rarely do. I'm going to go to the film and show you the moment this change occurred. And this is actually a fascinating moment in Patrick Mahomes' history because there's a lot going on here. So this play right here.
This is annoying. We're
3rd and 10 overtime AFC title game 2 years ago. A lot of things are happening there. One is this. It's the final pass he ever throws to Tyreek Hill. Another one is, it's much like we saw this year. Like, when you look at it on replay, you're like, oh, wow, that hit him in the hands and was a perfect play.
Yep.
And it also, I'm not killing Tyreek. It's a couple years ago. He dropped it and knocked it to an opponent. It also is the last interception he's thrown in the playoffs. It also was the end of the only bad playoff game of his own doing of his career. In that moment, Patrick Mahomes changed. That is still, I know this, the loss that haunts him more even than the Super Bowl, and that is the game he hangs around his own neck more than anything. So from that moment forward, he changed. And he said, I am not going to in the postseason, put the ball in jeopardy. I am not going to take sacks. And we can show you his numbers pre and post that moment. So the first 11 games of his career, he was unbelievable. But the big difference is if you look at the yards per game and then the touchdown interception, the passer rating's the same. The first 11 games, he was sacked almost 3 times per game. Since then, he has been sacked 0, 3, 0, 0, 0, 2 in his 6 games. The 3 was against the Bengals with the high ankle sprain. The 0, but then 0 against the Eagles. Best.
So, and this is kind of the argument. To me, this kind of proves my point that I've said in the past, and a lot of people have been kind of coming at me because I made the argument that you can't use the past as an indicator of necessarily what's going to happen in the future, especially when it's from a team perspective. And this is what I meant, and I don't know if I was as clear about that before, but you can definitely look at individual players, of course, right? And because my whole argument was when you're looking at teams is it doesn't matter because a team itself doesn't have a soul. So what they did in 2019 versus what they're doing in 2023, 2024, if 95% of that team is a different team, then who cares what they did in 2019, right? But you can look to see Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, any of the same players and be like, this is what we know that they do, historically. But the thing is that this is how we see players mature and grow and evolve. And this is why you can't even say, look what they did last season, because we've seen this before. Emmanuel Acho has made these statements, and I think it was when it was the Ravens were playing the Dolphins, and he said, these two teams are essentially identical as they were last season or whatever. And it was just like, no, they're not. Like, even if it's the exact same players, 100% identical, they're different players. They've evolved, they changed, they're either healthier or more injured, or they've grown and matured or somehow reverted back, whatever it may be. And to me, this is the perfect example. His first 11 games of his playoff career are in no way indicators of what he has done in the last 6 games. They have. I mean, look at these numbers. These numbers are vastly different. Nearly 100 yards less total yards per game. Obviously significant, less touchdowns, although it's a little bit harder. Maybe just double that. So it would still be, less touchdowns, obviously less interceptions, but even if we doubled 11 to 22, that's still, that's still a lot of missing, touchdowns reverse. Yeah. The passing rating is virtually virtually the same. And then sacked, even if we doubled that to 27 to 10, significantly less. Now I look at that really from a couple ways. I think that's not only Patrick Mahomes, but I also think that's Andy Reid. And I think it's, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid understanding that we're not going to be as successful as we can be if we constantly make Patrick Mahomes the hero of the day. If we constantly make him put on a Superman cape just because he can do amazing things, as we've obviously seen over the years. He can do amazing things, but we know that's not the recipe for success. And we've seen this all the time in all sports. We've seen this in basketball, whether it's Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Steph Curry. You can't rely on those players to be the superheroes game in and game out and expect to win 4, 5, 6, championships. That's not what happens. They don't rely on Steph Curry to always have that big game. Sometimes it has to be Klay Thompson. Even Michael Jordan didn't hit every game-winning shot. Steve Kerr famously, hitting the 3. Same thing with LeBron James. Kyrie Irving famously hitting his shot, to help the Cleveland win. It's a true team effort. And this is what we see when other franchises get really good players, or specifically quarterbacks. They rely so heavily on one player, and because of that, it's too much weight on one person's shoulder. Whether it's Josh Allen, whether it's Joe Burrow for that matter. Although Joe Burrow has significant help, although I think his coaching is questionable on an offensive line has always been questionable. But so I think maybe Josh Allen is probably the second best comparison with that. But even just historically, like other players, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the Packers did not build great teams around him. That's not to say they built terrible teams, but they never really went out and said, we are giving him offensive weapons. We are giving him a GOAT coach or coordinator. I mean, he just never had that. I mean, majority of his career was played with McCarthy, and McCarthy is a good coach. He's not Andy Reid. He's not Shanahan. He's not McVay. And yeah, he's had a couple good wide receivers in his career. It's not to say that he's never had any good wide receivers, but he's never had the Tyreek Hill. He's never had the Travis Kelce, you know? So all of these things really, really matter. And to me, this is why I think Mahomes will ultimately, or I should say, as long as he ages appropriately or well, which you just have no idea. To me, that is the biggest question mark. There's no guarantee that he is going to age and be able to play as long as Tom Brady. Tom Brady may be a true outlier, or Tom Brady may be the indicator of what the future will come for many athletes. You just don't know. And again, you never know who's going to get injured. Patrick Mahomes could tear his ACL and MCL, you know, not unlike Kyler, and he could just lose a step, or he just loses a couple seasons because of injuries. You just have no idea. It's not hard to imagine he's going to throw the ball and he's going to hit the helmet of someone, and now he fractures his finger, needs to get surgery, and now he's done for the season. So you just don't know. So, but let's just say, all that aside, he stays healthy. I believe that we're more aware and conscious of how to manage these great players and how once in a generation they are. And as long as you're with a good, healthy, well-organized franchise, well-run franchise, they're going to support that. So what I'm trying to say is that I think that there is a great chance that as long as Patrick Mahomes can continue to play, the Chiefs, and Andy Reid for that matter, as long as he's going to continue to coach, they're going to put Patrick Mahomes in a position to get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Super Bowls, because they are not going to squander any of his years. They are going to go all in and do everything they can to build up this team, to make sure that Patrick Mahomes doesn't have to be the superhero, that they're not going to just roll out, you know, Patrick. When Travis Kelce retires, or when Travis Kelce clearly proves that he is no longer the tight end that they can rely on, I guarantee you that the Chiefs are going to do everything they can to get a replacement, to get the next up-and-coming, big-time tight end, to make those moves, you know, to be that. Obviously, it probably won't be as good as Travis Kelce. If you get lucky, who knows? But, you know, like, they're going to find that. You know, they're going to make sure that Patrick Mahomes has a run game, that he has wide receivers that can catch, that he has a good offensive line. Like, they're going to do those things, as well as Patrick Mahomes also having the maturity and understanding that he's not supposed to be the superhero every single game. And that is something that Tom Brady understood very deeply. And that is why Tom Brady was able to be so successful and play for so long, because it was like, I can be a hero when you need me to, and I can also just check the ball down. And I can also understand we are in a close defensive game, so I'm going to minimize my mistakes. And again, that's what made Tom Brady so great, and that is what is making Patrick Mahomes so great, is understanding the score is 17-10. I do not need to push the ball downfield or force a throw, which now leads to an interception, or take a really bad sack, which now we're going to have to punt the ball and the other team's going to get good field position. And to me, that is the master class of both Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes, as we can see from the first 11 to the last 6, is really proving that. Because when you look at these stats, you wouldn't necessarily say that this is electric, especially the total yards per game. And to me, the total yards per game is way more telling than anything else, honestly, because that is kind of proving that Patrick Mahomes isn't being a superhero in that regard. He's not even averaging 2 touchdowns a game in that regard. So I would, you know, and he's just a tick under 260 yards. And if we're talking about Patrick Mahomes being the GOAT and the most amazing player in the history of the world, you're in your mind, especially because we know he can do such exciting things, in your mind, you're thinking of, your mind automatically goes to him, you know, doing the no-look passes and scramble, and then a 50-yard bomb, and, you know, you're thinking of just exploding the stat sheets, you know, the box score, and that's not always what it is. And I had a conversation with someone in the comment section before where they were saying, "Oh, see, I told you, you know, that Patrick Mahomes didn't need to have a big game to win the game against the Ravens." And I said, that was a big game. And then they came back and said, if you know anything about Patrick Mahomes, you would know that by his standards, that wasn't a big game. Look at these stats. It was a big game. He did exactly what they needed to do. It wasn't an electric game. It wasn't an exciting game. It didn't jump off the screen, but it was a big game, and it was a perfect game because it was done exactly what needed. He did exactly what needed to be done. And so by definition, that is a big game. It's a perfect game. And again, even Nick Wright said that was a perfect game by Mahomes. And obviously he's Patrick Mahomes super fan number 1.
pass rush in the league, 0 against Ravens, best pass, or 2 against Ravens, best pass rush in the league. But the yards are down 75, and the interceptions are at 0. Mahomes, and he, of course, has not lost in that stretch. Mahomes changed the way he plays in the playoffs. He can still put the cape on, Brew, but has not needed to. The yards are way down, the interceptions are at 0, and that was the moment. That was the moment where his mistakes cost him what he thinks was a great chance to win the championship.
That makes sense, and I agree with you on that. But I also think you said that was his last pass ever to Tyreek Hill. Losing Tyreek Hill, I think, is a big part of this, too.
The style, sure.
Yeah, the style change. Like, if they still had Tyreek, I think his numbers would be much closer to those first 11 games than they have been these last 6. I love the change because now, like he said, it's all about winning. All right, Brady, his first 3 Super Bowls, he played well. Obviously, the first one, he didn't even have – he had 1 touchdown the whole playoff run. But the ones after that, even the second and third, he did have some touchdowns. But it wasn't a light show by Tom Brady, okay? But he still gets all the love and all the credit for that. I think Mahomes has realized that.
Patrick Mahomes' his first Super Bowl, he played terrible. He didn't play – not his first – the first Super Bowl that he won played terrible in. Was the first Super Bowl he played in that he won, or was the first Super Bowl he played in against Brady where he lost? I forget. The years, especially with COVID, are all meshing together for me. But I would say that he went against the 49ers. He did not play good in that Super Bowl at all. Yeah, he had a great last 7 minutes of that game, but he had multiple interceptions. I mean, he was not playing well at all in that game, and yet they still won. They ended up winning, and that's why football can be very inconsistent when just saying this player is responsible for either winning or losing.
Okay. I just need to win. And I think now he's a more versatile and complete quarterback who can win anyway. Like you said, he can still win a shootout. Don't get it twisted. If he has to, he can still air it out. MVS, if they had to, I think they'd have a lot more deep throws to MVS. Against Buffalo, you saw him get a few. But he also, in that second half, managed the game. All right, so I like all of that, and I think it's been a good change. That said, Nick, even if they win this Super Bowl, I would love to see the Chiefs go out and get a top-flight receiver because you got a Ferrari. And I get the most important thing is winning. And if he wins 2 or 3 more Super Bowls, and it's kind of like this, where it's defense-led and he's managing the game and making plays where he needs to, great. But I would rather, as a fan who saw this guy putting up historic numbers earlier in his career, I would like to see that. I don't want it to cost the defense, but can you get a guy? I think Rice is developing, but he's not like a huge deep threat. Can you get a guy, a top-flight receiver, where your defense is still strong, but now your offense can be closer to what it used to be? I got a Ferrari. I want to get it out on the open road every now and then.
So I guess here's would be my pushback to that. Last year they didn't have that, and he won the league MVP. They were the highest scoring team. Yardage was not an issue. This year, I think we have seen when, certainly in the playoffs, the one playoff game where they had to score a lot of points, they had 8 chunk plays. They did go down the field to MVS. Yep. And the reason I got irritated yesterday with the critiques of them in the second half is I felt like they were yes, of course, you'd always like to score points. But I do not think the number one goal up 10 in that second half was to score points. I think the number one goal for Kansas City was to grind clock and to take care of the football. And as soon as they were in a situation where, it's a one-score game, they hit a big play. And so I think that is available to them. I do think, Brew, yes, in a perfect world, you have a cheap, deep threat that, that somebody, or Mike Evans is like, you know what, I want another Super Bowl. I'll take not a hometown, but a Super Bowl discount. But I think Patrick kind of setting aside I'm sure loved the way he played in 2018 even more than you? He did. How fun that is. You know what I mean? And so setting that to the side to do what is in the best service of winning for this type of team, I think is perfect.
You don't think?
So, and a big part of that is Andy Reid. Make no mistake about it. This is the brilliance of Andy Reid, and as well as the receptivity of Patrick Mahomes of going along with it. This is what Andy Reid does and how genius he is and understanding the team and what he can do. And you saw this with Andy Reid when he was the coach of the Eagles. The Eagles, again, won 4 straight divisions and went to 4 straight NFC Championship games and went to the Super Bowl, all with a ragtag group of people, and having a non-Hall of Fame quarterback, which is unheard of. It was with Donovan McNabb, and they had no receivers. They had a pretty good running back at the time, but nothing like crazy special, right? Again, not a Hall of Famer. So you don't see that. You don't see that level of a success. And I see that as a dynasty. Going to 4 straight NFC Championship games, I understand. I don't judge them just based off of whether or not you win the Super Bowl. The Eagles were this elite team. Andy Reid was clearly elite, especially for those 4 years, undeniably. I would say that the way how he coached that team and the way he did it, it drove a lot of fans crazy because they weren't pushing the ball downfield because they didn't have the receivers to do that. They did so many of these short little 3-yard passes and stuff like this. And it was because, they didn't have the ability to do that. When they did have the 1 year with Terrell Owens, when they finally had a real wide receiver, that is the year that they were able to just be incredibly flashy. They went to the Super Bowl very easily and almost won the Super Bowl against the dynasty of the Patriots. But that was Andy Reid maximizing that team and maximizing the offense, especially, and maximizing what Donovan McNabb could do, especially with a handful of receivers who were just not good by no stretch of the imagination. And so that is what makes Andy Reid so good, is that he not only knows his team, so he's like not forcing the ball down the field. He is working with Patrick Mahomes, and I'm sure he's had these conversations with Mahomes of like, we can't do what we've done in the past. We need to approach these games differently. And the beauty in Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes hasn't fought it. He's not like, no, I still want to put up those numbers in 2018. I still want to put up 300 plus yards, throw for 3 touchdowns a game, have all those amazing, top 10 moments and all that. But he's receptive. He knows he wants to win. I think Mahomes has his eyes set on, I believe, 8. He wants to win 8 championships, right? He wants to just win one more. Obviously he wants to win more than that, but his whole thing is, I got to win more than Tom Brady. And I don't care about stats because, again, looking at Tom Brady, what makes Tom Brady so great and considered the GOAT, no one ever really references his stats. They're not like, do you see what his completion percentage is? The average person has no idea his completion percentage. They have no idea what his rating is. They have no idea how many touchdowns he's thrown for. I mean, outside of the superest of all super fans, they have no idea. I have no idea. And no one knows about that, even Mahomes right now, because football is not stat driven necessarily when we consider people to be who's elite and who's great. A little bit, right? When you look at like Jerry Rice or some of these receivers or some of these other things where you're just like, this guy had the most sacks in a single season, or this guy had the most touchdowns in a single season, or career wise. But when we're talking about the GOAT and this or that, no one's looking at Tom Brady and saying, well, look at these numbers. This is what makes him the GOAT, outside of the 7 championships, of course. So I think that's where Mahomes is at more than anything. And I think you want to see, where this brings him into the future, because I think the style of play for the Chiefs has gotten them obviously success, and they're doing well. But there's been a lot of close calls for the Chiefs. That's the reality, right? They could have lost the Super Bowl last season. They could have not won against the Bills or the Ravens, for that matter. So these aren't they're not having these convincing wins. These are definitely more closer, tighter wins. And this is kind of what I think Brew is saying, is like, you have the Ferrari. We want to see that more. And also, like, let's give us a little bit more room for margin of error here. Let's try to make this a little bit easier, because we're winning a few of these games under very specific circumstances. And the truth is we get, in a lot of these games that we're winning, we get to rely on the immaturity and lack of experience of these other teams. And that's why we're able to really exploit that and win, which is great and genius of the Chiefs, and the best thing that the Chiefs really have going for them, because they have way more experience and way more success and winning pedigree than any other team in the NFL right now. And they have that head start, and there's no real way for another team to catch up even, right? And it's just, it's by definition they're already ahead. So you would have to stop them first to slow them down to be able to surpass them. And that's obviously not the easiest thing to do. So right now, Andy Reid and Mahomes and the Chiefs as a whole are in the best position because their experience and their championship pedigree is consistently able to exploit the immaturity and the lack of championship success and veteranship of these other teams. It's really how they've been able to get by, I feel as though, these last couple years, specifically in these really tight moments, whether it's a boneheaded late penalty call against the Bengals or a strip fumble from the Eagles in the Super Bowl, or, you know, the Bills relying on Josh Allen to be a Superman in the drop passes. And again, before all you Chiefs fans come at me and say these are all excuses or that you're just saying that the Chiefs are getting lucky, that's not at all what I'm saying. I'm literally saying they're taking advantage of their own skill set and their own experience and being able to lean on that and put pressure on the other teams. That is what you're supposed to do. That is what the Bulls did. That is what the Lakers did. That is what the Golden State Warriors did. There was plenty of times that the Golden State Warriors were being outplayed, or the Lakers were being outplayed. The Bulls were being outplayed, but they relied on what they know that they could do best. They could rely on their experience, their understanding of how a full game unfolds, and were able to understand the bigger picture because they've been there consistently. And that is the best thing that the Chiefs and and Mahomes and Reid have going for them. But you don't know when that ends, because all you do is need a good, sharp, mature team that is well coached, good, and is not going to crumble in the pressure situations, is not going to come up with a poor game plan, and then you lose, and then it's like, well, now you don't have enough, and then it's like, okay. So that's why I think if you are a Chiefs fan, you should want them to maybe try to be a little bit more aggressive this offseason, even if you win the Super Bowl. You have to be honest with how you're getting to these places and know that these margins are very small, very small, very small, very small, and you want to put yourself in a situation where, you can win more convincingly, so you can withstand the issues that arise throughout a season or throughout a playoffs or sustained injuries, however it may go. But those are my thoughts on this one. I would love to hear your thoughts. Please let me know in the comments below. How do you think Mahomes has changed his style? Do you think this is really just the beauty of Mahomes, Reid, the Chiefs as a whole? Would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please don't forget to subscribe. As I said, we are building an amazing community, and I would absolutely love to have you part of it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really helps with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.